So when compiling the list of taking the Reins guests for the next few months, one name really stuck out to me, and one interview that I really couldn't wait to do was that of Dean Kannemeyer, to chat about all the stories, the great horses, the memories, and also the progress from whenever it started to where we are today. Dean, first and foremost, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. Looking forward to this chat. Thanks so much for being here.
Alistair, thank you, and your pleasure, and great to be on your show.
All right, so let's go to the very start. Obviously, the Kannemeyer name, such a synonymous, famous name through your father, Peter Kannemeyer. Just want to get a little bit of background about his life story. Was it a matter of the Kannemeyers have always been in racing, a long lineage, or did he sort of stumble upon this great game by accident?
You know, there was no academies those days, and the stables were quite near where he lived, and he started riding work, and he managed to get in, and so he started those days in Cape Town, and he rode for close to 25 years.
And then, from your point of view, we'll get to some of the glory days of your father in due course, but then from your point of view, like I can speak from Matthew de Kock's perspective, golf was the be-all and end-all through school. His father being a great trainer, that was kind of great, but you know, time off before getting into university, decided he wanted to become a trainer. When did it dawn on you that the career in racing and training racehorses and following your father's footsteps was apparent? Was it day one, going to the yard at a young age, or did the bug bite over time?
I think the bug had bitten me many years ago when he was still riding, and you know, and then when he started training, I think I was the age of 9 years old. When he started training, and I still used to go sit up in the trees in Milnes with the binoculars and sit the whole meeting, you know, because if you were under 16, you definitely weren't allowed in the racecourse. It would be a terrible crime. So I used to sit and watch the racing from those blue gum trees as a kid. So I was always in you know, and when he started training, I started riding work for him, and I do remember riding my first grass gallop, and I think I was on the age of 11. And I rode a filly that was a New Zealand filly. So from that time, and I wanted to be a jockey, and I was going to be too big and things like that. And so it always was set into me, I'm going to get involved in the racing game. And so we didn't go to the academy, and that was a blessing in disguise. It probably would have lasted 4 years or 5 years. There were a lot of arguments in the house, and the father saying to him, well, he's going to be too big, because he himself battled, he struggled with his weight. It was a battle with the scale his whole life. So it was always me, this is what I wanted to do. And train, and once you finish schooling, you know, to do your military service, and then I joined him, and I joined him in 1981.
So obviously all that success would have bred the type of appetite that you've got, but just some of the famous names. I mean, I was looking at Met winners, Pas de Croix being the last Met winner that Peter Kannemeyer trained. Lots of great horses through his hands. What great horses did you see that your father had that sort of built that appetite and really made you aspire to carrying on the famous name that your father obviously forged?
Well, you know, he trained a lot of good horses, you know, and one of them that springs to mind is a horse called Over the Air. He won the July for him, and I think in about 1979 he won the July. Sunshine Man, when father won the July in 79, he also won the Clearwood Handicap with a horse called Sunshine Man, and he was a Persian wonder, had a certain smile. First time he actually went on the grass, I rode him as a youngster, and he trained many. I mean, as a real kid, I remember he had a very good horse called Prairie Prince. Garth Pull used to ride him. I think he ran second twice in the Queen's Plate, but he trained many Group 1 winners, and over the years, you know, was like Cool Star, you know, Young England, and Eli's Toothless who won the Guineas, and you know, Pas de Croix was also a very good top horse in the country. So he trained a lot of Group 1 winners, a lot of group races.
Working for family can be quite an awkward matter in that you probably get treated with a little bit of, oh, that's the apple of my eye, and potentially the strictness and the lessons learned might not be instilled, because it is obviously, you know, you being Peter's son, that's my son, I don't want to be too hard on him. Was there an element of strictness? Was it business at work and family at home? Did you feel that was the case?
Yeah, very strict man, but a very fair man. But yeah, he was a good man to work for, but don't make the same mistake twice. He was when he started training, he very much attention to detail, and he worked very hard. He was a very, very hard worker, and he was at his stable 7 days a week. And the old timers, and he was, when I was, 1:45, you had to be at the stables in the afternoon. You got to be first one at work, and the last one to leave. But he was very good with his clients too. I mean, he started training with out here, just beyond Kalani racetrack, where Jeff Woodruff was at one stage, and before he moved on, he started there, and he started with 5 horses. But it didn't take him long. I think after about 3 years, he had some very, very good clients in his yard. So, as a heavyweight jockey, battling the scale, started training, and it's very difficult to make a success out of training. But he built that yard up, and he built it up pretty quickly.
Where and when were the first real big lessons learned? Because you talk about don't make the same mistake twice. We were chatting off air about various other factors that you would have picked up that perhaps your father did differently to various others. But when did Dean Kannemeyer really learn his first lesson? Was it the first day when go and raid? There's the raiding party. I'm looking after that, and now this is your time to shine. Or were lessons learned well before that?
Well, yeah, it was well before that. Before I started going to Durban, I started with him in 80-81, and I think it was about 82. Could have been about 82, 83. He left for Durban for the season, and I was in charge of the string in Cape Town. I was a young man, and he would go to Durban, and he would say to me, you do the nominations, you do the scratchings, you got to place horses correctly. You know how it goes, things like that. And one of the things he did say to me, and it was very important, is one man can train 100 horses, but 2 people can't train 1 horse. When he was in Durban, and I'd phone him, he said, you're on your own, kid. But you got any other problems, speak to me. But he would fly down once a month or every 6 weeks, and I'd pick him up at the airport on a Friday evening during the winter, and we used to have terrible cold, wet winters here. And he'd have his cashmere coat on, and he'd arrive at the yard. I'd already had the bar areas all ready, and the ice was there because his clients were coming to see him, because that was big Friday nights. And then you had arrive, go to the stables, and then you had this cashmere coat, and then he'd say to me, let's take a walk through the yard. Let's go look for the faults. And I was doing pretty well, and of course you're young and you're eager and you think you're good, and that's what I think. Let's go look for the faults. So it was, I do remember going, and one day I looked at a horse, and we looked at a horse who opened the box. It was an important filly, and he said, but that filly's got a joint. Well, I said, that must have happened this afternoon. He said, no, that never happened this afternoon. He was a very good man to work for, very, very, as I said, very, very strict. But when horses got beat, he never mind. He never mind. When jockeys, he had a long relationship with Garth Bull, I think 24 years or 26 years. But I never ever heard him moan or sling off after a race. Sometimes the horses got beat, and there was huge pressure from his clients, but he never weakened. Never said a thing. And even to me, he said, Sunday morning we had to be at work. He used to work all his horses on Sunday morning. And he may have talked to me briefly about the race, and Garth would come on a Monday, but that's history, that's past, that's what happened. Even on the day, I don't want no postmortems. Saddle up a good horse in the next race we fancy. And that's how he ran his business and his life.
Glad you teed me up onto the next question, which is about jockeys. And the biggest thing that strikes me about, I'm obviously chatting to my father and his 10 rand place accumulator punting days, which still continue. In Cape Town, he had great success following Kannemeyer and Puller. And just thinking about your father with Garth Puller, yourself with Carl Nesius, then moving on to Anthony Delpeche, then Keegan DeMello is now in Hong Kong, and now Craig Zaki. That loyalty that the Kannemeyers have shown to their jockeys, what is that all about? How hard is it to commit to one guy, give them the chances, have that loyalty, not complain after a race in such a high pressure environment where owners are putting their money into the game, trusting you to do your job, then the jockey to do their job. What is that all about? Because it's so admirable, it's so fresh, so old school at the same time. That's just unbelievable.
Well, I do believe you've got to work as a team. You've got your trainer, you've got your jockey, you've got your assistant trainer, you've got your staff. And that's a team, and you've got to stick with one another. And people make mistakes. Jockeys make mistakes. And it's also for the trainer to try and keep the clients happy. But, you know, you take a jockey, you don't want him in a situation where a jockey rides a horse for you, he wins on the horse. Do you think you can get him to ride the horse next time? We're going to say, well, I could put this champion jockey, put him, he rides, he wins the horse. He's not going to ride it next time. So we've always wanted to have one stable jockey. He knows the quirks, he knows the horses, what it's all about. Yes, maybe he misjudged the pace. Yes, he did make a mistake. But what, you might put somebody else on. You'll find out bad the next guy is. Yeah. So that's what we've always tried to work. And as he had a jockey for 24 years, and Carl Nisius rode for him for many years, golf with Carl Nisius, you know, and we've always tried to run our operation like that. You know, we had Del Pesh, who rode for me for not that long, and then he fell. Then we built up a relationship with Keegan O'Malley, and Dahoria was criticised at the beginning. You know, they said, yeah, because sometimes a jockey joins you, it just takes a little bit of time to gel and get things right. And I was a bit under pressure, but you can't just weaken and, you know, and also get beaten while it's put the next guy on, you know, because the left hand won't know what the right hand's doing. And we put that together, and now after he left to go to Hong Kong, we looked and I was having a long discussion with Jean Malaba, and we said, here's a chap like Craig Zaki here, I think is a guy that's got great potential. He's young, he can ride light. He went up in New Zealand, he rode group winners, ridden Group 1 winners in South Africa, and I approached him and first call on him. So that's the way I like to run the operation.
So let's go back to when Dean Kannemeyer flew on his own. Obviously the satellite yard and your father leaving you to your own devices for a few months on end, that's one thing. But now the name's on the card, Dean Kannemeyer. How did that come about, and when did that happen?
Yeah, firstly, in 93, you know, I started going to Durban in 93. Father said he's had enough of going to Durban, so I just carried on the string, training him over there and programming horses since 93. In 99, I took over the license, and I won my first Group 1 in my first year. And funny enough, it was for Gary Blair, and the Gold Cup was
Colonial Girl.
Colonial Girl, yes, and won the Gold Cup with her. So officially, I took over the license in 99, and so I've been doing the Kannemeyer Yard has actually been doing this Durban champion season since about 1973. I started going in 93 and took the license over. So I myself have actually been going to Durban for the champion season since 93.
And obviously it's now developed into more than just champion season. It's a satellite yard now run by Nicolette Roscoe. Was that an easy decision to make?
You know, it's you know, running 2 yards is an expensive business. It's expensive running 2 yards. But when we moved from Cleveland in 2015, that's when we started at Summerveld. And I looked and I looked what was happening in Cape Town, and I looked at Durban, and I said to myself, you know, I think it's a great idea to have a satellite yard, because I looked at certain horses and I said, these horses aren't going to be good enough to earn in Cape Town, especially in the summer season, off season. I think we've got to set up, because we've got the poly track, we've got Scottsville, we've got Greyville, and these horses, and the stake money, I think I was racing for about 100,000 rand a stake, an advertised stake, and I said, instead of getting rid of these horses, send to P for the smaller stakes, we can run a successful yard in Durban too. And Albie Going was helping me at that stage, and
legend Albie. Yeah. I remember growing up calling it.
Yeah, and so the satellite yard was very successful. And I still got the satellite yard. I said Nicolette runs that. Cut down a bit of the numbers in the off season, and have picked the numbers up here in Cape Town. And so we'll continue with that satellite yard. And champion season in Durban is champion season. Like here in Cape Town in the summer season, I mean, it's great when the best horses in the country meet, and it's great racing. People come from all over, and that's the champion season in Durban too, because all the best horses meet for all those group races, graded races. So yeah, we still got the satellite yard, but we're just a little bit down in numbers at the moment.
Let's talk about horses, some of the great horses that have been through your hands, and also, it sounds a bit cliche, but talk about the Hollywood Bets Cape Guineas, and 2 names come to mind, Marshall Kannemeyer. But before we get there, I want to talk about your 3 Hollywood Bets Durban July winners. 3 totally different horses in my eyes. Dynasty, who was just an absolute leader. That story that, I don't know if it's fable or not, you can tell us, when Robbie Frad rode him first time under the lights at Greyville, when he was just making his debut and got off and said, this horse will win the July. And there we were a year later, you were leading in Dynasty after beating Yardom. Everyone knew how great he was after one start. Eye of the Tiger, who obviously won the July in 2006 under Gerrit Schlechter, and then Power King, in total different terms, looked like one of those July winners that was well handicapped as opposed to being the best horse in the race. 3 totally different horses that won Africa's greatest race. What are your recollections of those 3 wins?
Champion Dynasty starts to run on strongly. Yardom, Dynasty's coming on strongly, and Dynasty's gonna strike gold. Dynasty, a courageous win from Yardom.
Dynasty was a great horse, you know, and often you train good horses and they don't show you that much back up, but he was also shown from the beginning. And he was really good from the beginning, and he was a beautiful horse. And I took him to Durban as a 2-year-old, and I was going to run him up the straight to Clearwood over 1,200 meters. And somehow, I don't know, you know, I was waiting, and probably was a bit foolish for me and a bit inexperienced. I don't know, just my ego got the better of me. It was such a good horse, and I decided to run him as a 2-year-old in open company at Greyville, over a mile, at night. He'd never been there.
You don't do that.
Yeah, it's just like, you know, if I think back, I mean, what kind of decision was that, you know? But I always knew he was good. And I remember jockeys who didn't even work. I said, "Oh, Dean, he's good. I don't know if he's that good, you know." But he duly won exceptionally well, you know. And then his second start, unfortunately, he reared as they fired and he got left, and he ran second in a group race. But he was really a super racehorse.
How devastated were you when he got rolled by Domino Man in that Cape Guineas? Was that sort of a moment where you stepped back and thought, is he that good, or was it one of those that you just put behind you and say, the bigger picture, the plan is on track?
Well, it's just one of those things, you know. Horses get beat. I thought he was unbeatable, and horses do get beat. And he was quite an inexperienced horse, you know. And I remember Domino Man, and he was coming down the inside, and he was sort of, I think he was lacking a bit of experience. Nevertheless, it was a long walk down the grandstands to the second box, I can assure you. I mean, he started like 1-5 or something in the Guineas, but horses do get beat.
Yes.
And well, he proved that all wrong, you know, all that form. He came at next start of the Derby from a bad draw, and Carl Nisius, I mean, he was about 3/4 way back, and just before he swung for him, he had to actually clipped heels, gathered him up, moved him out, and he still won by about 4 lengths, you know. So the rest is history, just continue from there.
And then your next 2 winners, obviously Dynasty was owned by Field Spring Racing, as was Eye of the Tiger, and then Power King for Kaya Stables, Lady Laidlaw. We'll get to them in just a moment. Eye of the Tiger, Brazilian bred, what's his story?
Eye of the Tiger and Sushi San, but Eye of the Tiger's coming home, and he's a champ on display, breathing fire. Eye of the Tiger.
Well, yeah, that was very interesting, you know. Royal Academy was going to go stand in South America, and you know, he was standing in Australia before, and then Sean said, "Look, he's standing in South America, and we probably can. He's a good stallion. I think we could, and they're probably going to have the very best mares in South America. And I think we've got to go have a look and see, you know." And we went to Brazil and went to a sale, and there was a lot of South Africans, and I remember I think Michael de Kock, myself, and Shahan.
Is that not the famous trip that Neil Andrews made as well?
I think he got, I don't know if it was that trip, but it was, and John McVeigh, Mary Slack was with, and nevertheless we bought him at a sale there. But it was interesting because in Brazil, the sales, you know, you can have 3 horses in the ring at the same time, A, B, and C, or A and B. It must be the same seller, vendor. And then you would bid, and once horse is knocked down, then you would say A, you know, or B, whatever. And I remember he was a top priced horse at the sales, and I wasn't a fan of John Newsom. It was a time change, and the noise, and they were bidding in Portuguese, and it was very, very loud, And I remember speaking to John Newsom, he said, knocked us down, said, we got him, he said, how much we pay? I said, just trying to work it out, but it was a lot of money. He's a top price horse. So we bought him, and so Sean said, A, Eye of the Tiger. And then B was on the market, and it was interesting. And so Jean had spoken to Mary and said, would you be keen to take B? Because he's also a Royal Academy and he's a nice type of horse. And Mary wasn't that keen, on the horse. And she just said, I think she had 2 of the progeny before. And then she turned around and she said, you know what? I've been to the well once, I've been to the well twice, I might as well go for the 3rd time, I'll take him. And that was the Expressway.
Guineas winner.
Yeah, so the one won the July, A and B was Expressway, won his first 5 in a row, the Selangor Cup and the Guineas. So it was a very good start in buying in Brazil.
Absolutely brilliant. And then Power King, first, was that like sort of the Cape Town Noir being the first sort of name that comes to mind when it comes to Kaya Stables? But Power King was probably the justification to hang around a bit longer.
Punta Arenas and Power King the last 100. Power King, Punta Arenas, eyeball to eyeball. Power King from Punta Arenas.
Power King was a horse that we bought at the Johannesburg sales, and he was a horse that was. He wasn't a wow horse, but he was by a champion stallion, and Jean and myself looked at him and standing there and thought, he's falling through the cracks, so might as well put our hand up, I took him to Durban as a 2-year-old, and he won first time out. Kevin Shearer rode him and won Clearwood first time out, and then brought him back to Cape Town. But he won the Winter Guineas, and he won the Clash at the 1800, and the Derby he ran 2nd. And then I took him back to Durban the following year as a 4-year-old, and his horse he just got beat in the Gravel 1900. He flew up and got beat at short head or head, I can't remember. And it was a blessing in disguise, because had he won that race, he probably would have got a kilo too. And so he had no penalties coming to the July, so he came in at a very good galloping weight. And I think he had 53.5, and he duly won the July. So those are the three July winners I've had. Eye of the Tiger was a really beautiful horse.
Here comes Eye of the Tiger flying. Eye of the Tiger and Sushi Sen, but Eye of the Tiger's coming home, and he's a champ on display, breathing fire. Eye of the Tiger.
Eye of the Tiger was a really beautiful horse, and he won the July also, and he won it well.
Let's go through the Lommara King's Plate, because we were just walking across the passage with the Wall of Fame. Free My Heart's there twice.
Ultrasound has come to the lead now as they come to the final 200. Raining Roses and Free My Heart is on the charge up towards the outside. And Free My Heart is coming home strongest of all in the Queen's Plate. Has he still got the will to win? He certainly has.
What a horse he was. I have early memories of Free My Hearts under Andrew Fortune at Clearwood in the Beck colours, and what a top gutsy horse he was. Was he just almost an overachiever in that when a horse came next to me, just fight and not want to know about defeat, or was he always just that special, almost early horse that really put you on the map?
He's a horse that actually, he was a very tricky horse to ride. He was the first of the Jallards. And I just remember arriving in the yard, and the Jallards were, didn't have the best of legs, and they were offset. And I remember him coming down the barn, offset and pigeon-toed, very deep girthed horse, and he was also never showed much back home. And but in a race you'd have to leave him alone, because he just don't try and rush him, just leave him alone. And he had a tremendous turn of foot. I do remember he missed the actual fact that the earlier part of the Cape summer season as a 3-year-old, he picked up a virus and he couldn't race, so he missed the whole summer season. And then I took him to Durban, and he won his first under Fortune, rode him, and he won. And then we put him in the Daily News, and he duly won the Daily News very well. But he won the Derby, the Natal Derby at Clearwood. Brought him back, and he I think he won his 5 Group 1 races. The one year I said to Field Spring Racing, John Newsom and Graham Beck, that I'm going to miss the Met this year with him. What I want to do with him is I'm going for the Queen's Plate. And I'm going to fly him up for the Horse Chestnut Stakes. And they said, sure. And so we missed the Met. We won the Queen's Plate, flew him to Johannesburg. He won the Horse Chestnut Stakes, trucked him down the next morning to Durban. And 3 weeks later, he won the Gold Challenge. And then 3 weeks later, 4 weeks later, he won the Champions Cup. So he basically won all those big Group 1 races right around the country.
All the way for ages.
Yeah,
races that Dean Kannemeyer sort of targets.
Yeah, no, he was very, very, very good horse.
And then Cape Town Noir. He the best looking horse you ever trained? Was I remember, I don't know if I was around, well, when I say around, I don't know if I was on course for his debut, but I remember this beautiful strapping horse making his debut, and his looks weren't a fluke. He was a performer as well.
Cape Town Noir in the yellow colours is moving swiftly, still under a tight hold, moves up and takes over the lead. Up there in second we got Love Struck. Deeper out comes the grey King of Pain, but he's still 5 off the leader with 150 metres left to go. It's Cape Town Noir that says, come and catch me if you can, but the further they go, the further he'll win by. Cape Town Noir wins it easy.
No, he was a beautiful horse, a lovely head and a big, bold eye, deep curved horse with a lovely rein and shoulder. And I remember that at the sales, Sean Malab and myself, and we still hadn't got a horse for Kaya Stables yet, and got just getting knocked out, and we said, well, you know what, there's one more horse right at the end of the sale. I said, we've got to go for this horse for Kaya Stables, for Lady Laidlaw. And we waited, and he came into the ring, and the betting was quite strong. And I still said, I remember, and the betting was strong. And then Michael the Cock came up and said, "You guys finished?" I said, "No, we're not finished. We're stopping on him." So that was our last chance of the sale to find something for Kaya Stables, and we duly got him. And it took a bit of time to mature. And as I raced him late, I only gave his first run right at the end of the Durban season, over 1,200 metres at Scottsville. I think it was an open company too. And he duly won, and then brought him back and brought him out in the springtime.
Interesting, both those winners of the Lomaron Kings Plate travelled up to Joburg. You're talking about flying Free My Heart Up. I remember Cape Town Noir also running in the HF Oppenheimer Horse Chestnut Stakes. If you have the horse that lanes to it and the calendar suits, would you ever be frightened of travelling back up to altitude?
No, I as I said, as you correctly say, a horse like Cape Town Noir, a little unlucky when he got beat. They got locked together and he sort of ducked, and got beat a whisker. I think Clyde called it that he had won it. And also like Free Mart, I think when he went to Johannesburg, that was the easiest win ever. And it was the first time Colnesis rode him. But I said to Col, you just got to leave him alone. Yes. Well, that's Colnesis' style. He was a very patient rider. And he that horse hit the front. He said, Dean, I squeezed him. And next thing came to the 400, he hit the front. And he duly won. So I wouldn't be afraid. You got the right horse here, I wouldn't be afraid. You could travel them up, flying them up always. I say to my patrons when I've flown them before, listen, guys, we're on the plane for 2 hours. Yes. You can travel them for 22 hours and things go wrong, you're in trouble. But they've done it successfully, up and down.
Yes.
But you can be careful with the horse and trying, if you're Cape Town based, I think, is trying to do, travelling those long distance in trucks and trying to do all 3 centres in 1 year. It's quite tricky. He was flown, I think, which helps, and then trucked him down to Durban, which is a quick drive. So, but in the future, if I've got the right horse, I wouldn't be afraid.
There's a style that Dean Kannemeyer has when buying horses at the sales. You can kind of pick those classic horses that are going to appeal to you. When you're looking at horses at the sales, are you thinking of the classic races straight off the bat? Is it, this is going to come early, I can get a quick return on owners, or just to use Silvano as an example, that's a Silvano, we're going to have fun as a 4 and 5 year old? Or, is there any particular style that you have when going shopping?
Well, firstly, we'd like to, we look for a horse, that's we're looking for a horse that's you've got to have a bit of speed, and you're looking for a horse that will get a mile, and hopefully his brilliance and class will get him to go 2,000 metres in the Met distance. But I work with Jean Malab. He does a pedigree analysis. We've got Jane Thomas also helping us with the spotting and going around the sales. So what we'd do is we'd go around the sales and we'd look at these horses, and these are pedigrees. These are bred to run, and successful pedigrees, and then we'd have look at the confirmation and we would look at them and try and make a short list. And what we would do is, Jean, we both got to really be saying, well, this is the horse, he stays on the short list, but if there's any doubt, rule it out, and everyone's going to make their mistakes, you're going to miss horses and things like that. But we've bought some very successful horses over the years. But the type of confirmation, you want horses deep girth horses, it's nicely well put together, and obviously height needs to be a bit true, and but with a good hind leg, and of course I go to the pedigree, and we try and buy successful stallions. It's very important. I think, you try and buy proven stallions, So that's how we've gone about it at the sales.
Ladrakar, the Jaffe colours under MJ Baileyfeld.
Yeah, he was a horse that Jean Malav and myself bought in at Melbourne at the sales at the end of February, and it was interesting because Jack Mitchell and John Newsom, Laurie Jaffe, and these guys that we can go by and have a look. So we had actually, there was a grey horse by Annabelle that we really liked, but he was coming late at the sales, and we had now bought horses, and when this horse was going to come up, Sean, we said, "Oh, we've got no money left. We've done our budget is gone, And the guys have spent their money and things like that. So what do we do? So we sat, the horse came into the ring. And I said to Jean, "Do you really like this horse?" He said, "Dean, I like this horse." I said, "He's a nice horse." And he came to the ring. And he was one of the more expensive horses at the sales at that time. And I said, "Just put your hand up, have a go." So, I knocked the horse down. For those times, for those years, he was one of the top priced horses there. So he knocked the horse down. He said to me, "Who did you buy that for?" He said, "I don't know, but I'll put him together." And I was very fortunate, that Field Spring Racing and Laurie Jaffe took him. And he won first time at Clearwood, and he won the Selangor, and he won the Guineas. And then he was sold overseas. But he was a beautiful individual, but I don't know if I could do that again, put my hand up like that with that type of money, not working in rands,
We've spoken about Cape Town Noir. There's one I'm missing. Obviously, Russian Rock we'll get to in a moment.
Yeah, we got
that was an interesting Cape Guineas, all sorts of mess, and it was beautiful that Grand Burr could get his first Grade 1 winner. But he was an enigma, was Russian Rock, wasn't he?
The Stars is trying to stay with him. Melmoose to the inside. Up the outside, we also got Russian Rock, who's into the clear. Down the inside, the gatekeeper, it's Linebacker. Russian Rock is wearing him down to the wire. They come very close. Russian Rock and Linebacker. There's a nose in it on the wire.
Russian Rock was a horse that, all went well for him in the Guineas, and he was a very tricky horse. And you could see in some of his races that if he grabbed the butt, and he put his head up, there was no way you could control him. But he, in the Guineas, he just relaxed completely, and he won. And he won. So I was thrilled for the partnership of Marsh Shirtliff and Bryn Lessel and Ian Longmore. And it was also just, I was at the right place at the right time when Marsh brought him, because I was chatting to Marsh, and he said, "What do you think of this Pomodoro?" I said, "Not a bad type." He said, "Come, let's see if we can buy him." And walked out, and Marsh knocked him down, and the rest is history. So he was, and he just had his temperament, and he grabbed it, but he was a difficult horse to train and ride. He just got beaten in the drill stakes because he didn't grab the bit, and he settled. But he had ability, but his temperament got the better of him.
And then obviously your other big Guineas winner being Nerdhook Flyer.
Down the inside, we got Lazar. We're inside the final 200. It's Captain Secret. Hot up against the outside running rail. Towards the inside, Nerdhook Flyer out the back. He's coming home strongly. Galileo's Galaxy is done for along the inside. And it's Nerdhook Flyer that's going on best of all. Nerdhook Flyer wins at Galileo's Galaxy.
Congratulations, Dean Kannemeyer.
Nerdhook Flyer, he was a pivotal horse. Very, very good racehorse. Tremendous speed, cruising speed, and Yeah, he actually, the first time I fancied him, he got beaten. Then second, I thought, no, you'll win, and he got beat in second. I was rather disappointed. And I'll put him away. And I'll bring him out in the springtime. And then Cole Niesis rode him, and he came out, and it was a bad draw in the Selangor. He ran second. Actually won it with what's called Postmaster, and but then he came out and won the Guineas. Ran second at the Derby. Wasn't a genuine 2,000-metre horse. He ran fourth in the Daily News, but he was more. He was a brilliant miler. He won the Guineas, yeah, and then he went to. I took him up to Durban. He won the Guineas there, but he was brilliant over a mile.
Speaking about Nicolette Roscoe, David Lilly. How long has he been with Kannemeyer Racing?
David Lilly's been with us since about, I think about 83, 84. He joined us. You know, he was apprenticed to Colin Palm, his uncle. He rode 1 or 2 winners for my father. And he came to join us, and then he would go with my father to Durban. The Durban season, I'd run the yard in Cape Town. And then when I started going in 93, he would stay with the father down in Cape Town. So he's been my right-hand man for many, many years. Very, very good horseman. Doesn't like the limelight and the glam up front and races, but you couldn't get a better horseman, a stableman. I mean, and reliable and very, very sharp eye, you know. Yeah, he knows his horses, and he doesn't miss a thing.
Just as we wrap up your current crop of horses, give me a Prince and the Real Prince, brothers. Give me a Prince multiple Grade 1 winner. The Real Prince on debut looked the part. Are they similar types of horses? Do we really need to keep an eye on the Real Prince? Can he step up? And even if he achieves half of what his brothers achieved, you know, that will be the sign of a good horse. How impressed were you with the Real Prince first time out, and how's Give Me a Prince going along?
Yeah, he's a lovely horse. You know, Give Me a Prince is a very smashing horse. Yes. You know, he's really a lovely horse. The Real Prince, you know, better horse on the racecourse than he's back home. I also had him in Durban. I was going to give him his first run, and he tore a flank muscle, and I had to ease up on him, brought him back, and then he tore flank muscle, the near side had a weight. And the other day I said to Lady Laidlaw, I said, listen, and to Jean Malab, I've got to get him on the racecourse. He still looks soft and looks a bit big, but I'll get him on the racecourse, and I think he'll give him enough work, I think, and he could run in the first 4, but I wasn't overconfident, but he won exceptionally well. Yeah. And I'd prefer that to show us here on the racecourse than back home. Give Me a Prince was from day one. I mean, he was just a good racehorse. Not an easy horse to train, as you can see, hardly raced. And that's also a very patient owner. And you know, with these athletes, and if they've got problems, they've got ability, you have to be patient, except it's expensive. But he was a horse that he's a brilliant racehorse. And you know, in the first time, and he won first time out, and then he got left in the one race, and he came back, and we weren't quite happy with him. The vet said 2 months, and I said no, 5 months. So I gave him 5 months off, and he came back, and he won those Group 1 races. So he ran a great race the other in the Matcham Stakes. I had a slight setback with him, that's why I didn't go for the Greenpoint Stakes. But it looks like his next mission is going straight into the Queen's Plate. If he's going to get a mile, I think he'll get a mile. Twice I ran him in the Drill, over 14. Drill Stakes on bad draw, flew up and just got beat. And in my opinion, Charles Dickens to me was the best mile in the country. And I wasn't afraid to take him on the other day. And my opinion, he was gaining on him with every stride. So it looks like we'll go straight into the Queen's Plate, the King's Plate, should I say. And we've got some nice young horses coming through, and Green with Envy running in the Guineas and Open Guineas, and but I ran a very good race the other day in the Punters Cup. Absolutely right.
What type of horse is Green with Envy? Does he remind you a lot of previous Guineas, previous Derby winners, potentially even previous Hollywood Bets, Durban, July winners? What's he all about, or is he his own individual?
Tall range horse, doesn't show much back home. Lovely temperament, out of a Galileo mare. I've no doubt he'll go 2,000 metres. But I think he'll be a lot sharper on Saturday. You know, the other day when he ran, he only got beat, I think, in neck. Still a bit lost, he said. You know, although the winner slipped past us on the inside, but he said he went a length clear of me, but going through the 400, was still, he didn't really know what to do, you know. And he said, no, I gave him 1 or 2 backhanders, changed my stick, and then he flattened out, and he was catching with every stride. So I think he'll be a lot sharper, but lots of potential. And that horse hasn't even been furnished yet, but I won't be surprised to see him go further as he matures and strengthens up.
And then to put a lid on it, you can't do anything without the owners, without the loyalty. Going back more than a decade now with Lady Christine Laidlaw and Kaya Stables. You mentioned Johan Malherbe and Jane Thomas with the help and hard work that they also do for you at the sales, and also various other trainers. But in terms of your client base, Lady Laidlaw being the obvious first point of interest, she's been absolutely wonderful to you, and the rewards that you've provided with the big horses that have won the big races. I'm sure you're very proud of yourself, but still, the fact that you're still training, the motivation's there to get more.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I must say I've got very good clients, and it's not that I've got a yard of 150 horses, 120 horses. We're sitting with the average with the satellite yard, an average of about 80 horses tops. But
is that by choice, by the way? 80 horses, is that just a manageable number?
It's something I've said over the years, and they said probably, I shouldn't have less than 100 horses in training. I've got the staff, can do it. Maybe I'm not such a great marketing man, but I should have 100 horses in training. Today, you get those big yards, I've got 150 horses in training, maybe 200 horses in training. And it's when you've got 80 horses in training, you know what percentage, these sick, lame and lazy, some aren't too good. So business is about numbers and volume. But I've got the 80 odd horses in training, but I've got very good clients, and I've got a good spread of clients. But I've got everything there to expand the business to 100 horses. But just maybe I need to be a better marketing man.
After this, maybe there'll be a few more knocks on your door. Last question. What's the future for Dean Kannemeyer? How much longer? The appetite's obviously still there because, get to Milnerton in the morning or Summerveld in the morning. There you are, not lost any of that appetite. What's there still to achieve? A Met?
I've never won the Met. There's still like, I think, there's still many years left in me, So already mentioned to me a couple of months ago, maybe a year or two, in a sort of informal meeting, and they said, you being one of the senior trainers, I sort of looked at the guy and was, what do you say? There's still many years ahead. I've got a good team around me. I've got a guy like Sean Malherbe has really batted well for me, yeah, we've got everything going there, and I haven't weakened at all. I think I'd like to pick up on the numbers and get about 100 horses in the stable. The Met I haven't won yet. I've run second a few times, but people don't worry about that. Forget about that. You've got to win them. But hopefully that'll come. There's still many years left.
Dean, thank you so much for the time. That was absolutely magnificent. Thank you.
Thanks for having me on the show.
Brilliant. So that's a wrap. That's Dean Kannemeyer telling us a lot, giving us a whole lot of hints, and just recollecting great days, and hopefully there'll be more great days to come. Don't forget to catch us on our next edition of Taking the Reins, and just a small favour to ask before we wrap it up, subscribe to our channel. We'll give you a lot of great content, just like what you've seen here today.